Hello everyone, today is 20th of January, now it's about 10 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Budadze and this is my first update for a day in which I'll share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Later on today, towards the evening, I will publish second news update on my Patreon and Boosty pages, and if you are looking for more news from Russia, more commentary, or if you like my work and want to support her, you're more than welcome to join our communities on Patreon or Boosty. Links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. I will just add that a monthly subscription on my Patreon starts from 5 USD. That's being said, let's go through some news now. And obviously, one of the main topics of the day, if not the main one, is going to be inauguration of the US President Donald Trump. And of course, world, not just US itself, but world is going to be focused on this event. There are significant expectations, positive and negative, from Trump's administration. We can go through at least several topics that most likely will be very relevant next 4 years. US itself, for example, most likely will face some significant or even dramatic changes in regards to migration. Obviously, US will be engaged in a tariff wars with the dozens of countries, including formerly allies of US, like Canada, for example, Mexico, or the EU member states, Japan, South Korea, you name it. US most likely will get engaged in a tariff wars with just about everybody. It is going to be bigger. I think, of course, issue of U.S. presence in northern, in Arctics, basically, going to be bigger. Thinker relationships between U.S. and Greenland, U.S. and Canada. That will make quite a lot of headlines in upcoming months and years. And I believe one way or another, but U.S. will manage to establish either a full direct or at least indirect control over the Greenland for sure, and the US will significantly improve its dominant position in Canada. Although I don't believe Canada is going to become a US state or something. But anyways, obviously this is stuff that on the surface. Me personally, obviously, are focused on this proxy war that Western ruling class is waging against Russia. And even though some people are optimistic that Trump's team gonna start de-escalating from the beginning, and I hope that is going to be the case. But unfortunately, I'm more on skeptical side of this discussion. We will see. We will see. In my personal opinion, Trump has an opportunity, definitely has an opportunity to demonstrate that his team, he personally, and whatever forces are behind him are serious about de-escalating with Russia, and they can demonstrate it in the first day, on the very first day of Trump's presidency, or at least first week. All it takes is for Trump to order Pentagon and CIA to no longer share targeting data and the flight path for drones and missiles that are constantly launched to strike deep inside the Russian territory. And I'm quite sure if that would happen, Moscow will see it as a real step towards the escalation. But will it happen? I don't think so, but yet again, we will see, right? Obviously, Trump's presidency will have a most likely significant impact on Middle East and the global South in general, or to be more specific, on Indo-Pacifics. I'm quite sure during the Trump's presidency, neocons and Western ruling class will conduct final push to provoke regional war in the Middle East, to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf and to cut off China from Middle Eastern energy sources. So risks of that will increase on unprecedented level, in my personal opinion. Also, during the Trump's presidency, unfortunately, probably we will see attempts of US to destabilize relationships between further destabilize relationships between Vietnam and China, for example, or Philippines and China, or some other countries in the region and China, and obviously, I mean, Japan, South Korea, Australia, they are already not really on friendly terms with China, isn't it? So U.S. Under Trump's leadership will probably try to play negative role, and will try to provoke some confrontations, political or maybe even military, between China and its some of its neighbors. And obviously, there is a high risk that during the Trump's presidency, Western ruling class and neocons will try to provoke military confrontation between mainland China and self-governed Taiwan. There is high risk of that. Also, after all, one should always keep in mind that U.S. economy, crucial part in U.S. economy, comes for military-industrial complex, isn't it? And military-industrial complex, to maintain itself, needs constant wars, right? That's why after Soviet Union collapse, U.S. created this narrative of war on terror, and that allowed the U.S. to allocate hundreds of billions of dollars for military-industrial complex, trillions of dollars actually, right? Then U.S. provoked, and U.S. itself was engaged in so many wars, isn't it? Then they provoked Ukrainian conflict. U.S. obviously played crucial role, negative one, in this proxy war that West is waging against Russia. But I believe in 2025 or maximum 2026, Ukrainian crisis will be resolved with obviously unconditional Russian victory. Eventually, Kiev regime or Western ruling class, I should say, will capitulate on Russian terms. I have no doubts about that. Even if Western propaganda will try to present whatever final agreement will be reached as a sort of victory for the Western ruling class, no. West will capitulate, Western ruling elites yet again, by the way, they will capitulate, and Ukrainian crisis will be resolved on the Russian terms. There is no other way, right? But exactly because this crisis will be resolved in 2025 or 2026, US needs another major military confrontation in this world, right? To maintain its military-industrial complex, and which plays yet again a crucial role in U.S. economy in general, and therefore risks that U.S. will, or Western ruling class and neocons and so on, will provoke a regional war in the Middle East will be on the highest level, I guess, and also risks that very same forces will provoke military confrontation between Beijing and Taipei. Nothing to be said about other areas of crisis where scale is not as similar, right? So as I said, plenty of expectations what might or might not happen during the Trump's presidency, but all of these, I mean, opinions that we have is a pure speculation at this point. Only time will tell. Only time will tell. Meanwhile, we have this report here from TASS News Agency that Trump issued an order to his staff to organize phone conversation with the Russian President Vladimir Putin after his inauguration. Initially, this information was reported by CNN, so therefore I'm going to take this news with a pinch of salt, because I don't trust no Western propaganda outlet, by the way, CNN being included. But I'm quite sure Russian press spokesman of the Russian president, Dmitry Peskov, will be asked today by journalists about any contacts between Trump's team and administration of the president here in Russia. And let's see what Dmitry Peskov has to say. Maybe Trump's team really contacted the Russian side to organize phone conversation. We will find out. And when Peskov will comment on this, and he will today, I'm quite sure. I will share this information on my Telegram channel, on Twitter X, or in my next term updates. Meanwhile, also interesting news, by the way, not really surprising, but somewhat interesting, that according to New York Times, head of State Department in US, Antony Blinken, was one of the individuals who basically was directly involved to derail peace talks between Moscow and Kiev in 2022. I knew about it. I reported about it. I many times in my updates, I said that it's not just Boris Johnson that went to Kiev to derail peace talks between Moscow and Kiev, but it was also high-ranking officials from State Department of US, Pentagon, and the CIA. And now, well, New York Times itself is confirming this information that yes, Antony Blinken, State Department, was directly involved to pressure the regime to derail any peace talks with Russia and to continue this proxy war and to sacrifice more and more residents of this former Soviet Republic for geopolitical agenda of the West. War criminal, by the way. Antony Blinken, clearly war criminal that should face consequences for his criminal actions, and maybe he will. Maybe he will one day. Meanwhile, we have this report from RIA Novosti that tens of employees of State Department are leaving their positions. Well, I guess people that were considering themselves Blinken's team or something will leave State Department, and also people that are most likely were engaged in some very dodgy criminal activities worldwide to avoid any investigations of their actions. And also one should say that I mean, social fabric in US is stretched beyond limits, isn't it? And some people really become let me translate this word, жертва. Victim, yes. Some people in US, including officials, by the way, and people in bureaucracy, definitely become sort of hostages of their own propaganda, right? They brainwash themselves, not just many others, but they brainwash themselves also. They start believing in their nonsense that they were pushing for years, right? And those people might find it difficult now to continue work under Trump's leadership, exactly because of this divide in the U.S. society that is, I mean, not just too visible, but as I said, society there, I mean, social fabric is stretched beyond limits and can snap at any moment. Anyways, I guess State Department will continue its work despite all this dispatcher of their tens of people. Although State Department definitely needs to be reformed, if you ask me, because it does not play a positive role in this world, for sure, and the State Department at this point is anything but about diplomacy. And majority of our community, I guess, will agree with me on that. Meanwhile, dear friends, RIA Novosti is reporting that Russian air defense systems on duty intercepted 31 Ukrainian drones that were launched during their nighttime and early hours of this morning to strike deep into Russian territory. Unfortunately, in certain areas, some drones did manage to bypass our defense systems and hit their targets, or the fragments, as Russian defense ministry is saying quite often, fragments of the drones fail on some industrial facilities and also in areas of in residential areas, for example in Tatarstan region. Also drones were intercepted in Ryazan and Oryol region, Belgorod and Kursk region, Kaluga region, and Bryansk regions. Obviously, if any update on this topic, I will share additional information on my Telegram and the Twitter X pages. And this is, I mean, long-range strikes, isn't it, with drones or missiles? This is the topic that I'm talking about. If Trump's administration is serious, or people that are behind Trump or forces, if they are serious about de-escalating with Russia, all they have to do to demonstrate their attitude is to no longer provide these drones and missiles. Formerly Kiev regime, in reality US military personnel on the ground, no longer provide with this flight path and targeting data, and there will be no more long-range drone and missile strikes on Russian territory, because Kiev regime itself don't have the means to conduct such strikes without NATO assistance. And if Washington will do so, obviously London and Paris will follow, right? And Moscow will definitely see that as a real step towards the escalation. But will Trump order? That's the big question to me personally. Will Trump order Pentagon and CIA no longer to participate in these long-range strikes? I don't think so. But I mean, next several days will tell us, by the way. If tomorrow there is drone strikes or missile strikes deep into Russian territory, obviously Trump did nothing, right? But anyways, I'm quite sure Moscow will maintain current restraint approach for at least several weeks, I guess, so that Trump and his team will have enough time to, you know, learn whatever they need to learn, right? And if after several weeks there will be no real steps toward the escalation, then Moscow will obviously have no option but to start retaliating for real. And not just on Kiev-controlled territory. Let's continue with some more news. And the Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that there is clashes in Velika and Novoselka settlement in South Donetsk sector of the front line, and Russian armed forces conducting offensive operations inside this settlement from three directions: from north, from east, from west. And most likely, Velika and Novoselka will be liberated by Russian forces before end of this week, maybe even in next a few days. RT is also reporting that Western intelligence community backtracks on the Russian sabotage claims in the Baltics. So the recent damage to underwater power and communication cables in the Baltic Sea was likely a result of a maritime accident rather than Russian sabotage, the Washington Post reported on Sunday, citing several US and European intelligence officials. And is anybody from our community surprised, by the way? I was saying from very beginning of when these stories pop up, isn't it, that Western ruling class was creating new false narrative based on which then Western ruling class will try to implement some policies to harass commercial vessels of Russia, commercial vessels of the other countries that are cooperating with Russia. And that's exactly what happened, isn't it? A couple of days ago, NATO announced some new military mission in the Baltics to protect, formally, to protect these cables that most likely never were damaged in the first place. Or if were damaged, then it had nothing to do with Russia anyways, right? And even Western intelligence agencies are acknowledging that. So usual stuff, by the way, usual stuff that we see time after time after time when it comes to policy making in the West, or in regards to Western ruling class. They are creating false narrative, and then based on this false narrative, implementing some policies. This happened in the Baltics right now. This happened in regards to this long-range authorization of these long-range strikes deep into Russian territory. If you remember, Washington tried to justify authorization of these long-range strikes by saying that there is some thousands of North Korean troops that are conducting military operations on behalf next to Russian militaries in the Kursk salient area or whatever. First of all, this is not a justification, right, to participate in direct attacks against nuclear superpower and to risk a third world war. But narrative itself, that there is some 10 or 12 or whatever thousands of North Korean troops, entire narrative of that was false, isn't it? And then on this false narrative, well, policies were implemented about these long-range strikes. And the very same is happening in the Baltics, happened in the Baltics. And dear friends, you tell me if you can ever trust anything that comes out of Western so-called elites, when you have such a clear factual evidences how they are operating, that they are creating false narratives, they are lying to people, and then on these lies they are building their policies. How can anybody ever trust this, at least current generation of this so-called elites in the West? I mean, I don't know. I would definitely never be able to trust those people, man. Never. It's impossible. You cannot trust them, man. They are totally fake people with totally fake everything, right? But it is good to know. It is good to know that nowadays even Western propaganda outlets are basically forced to acknowledge that all this topic was of Russia sabotaging some underwater cables in the Baltics was a false narrative. It never happened. Anyways, let's continue. RT is also reporting that, well, Slovakia is pledges to veto future Ukraine aid. Nowadays, dear friends, as you know, there is a beef between Prime Minister of Slovakia and so-called President of Ukraine, Zelensky. They really don't like each other, and Slovakian president is getting more and more frustrated with this clown, Zelensky. And so much so that he is now stating that Slovakia may veto any future aid for Kiev regime. So Slovakia will veto any future Ukraine aid considered by the EU. Prime Minister Robert Fico has announced Bratislava will now take a different approach to hostile moves by Kiev. He warned Fico issued a threat in a video address posted on social media late on Saturday. Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky believes everyone should be his servant. Fico asserted, warning such an approach would not work with him. In my case, the skater hit the rock. Robert Fico is a Slovak prime minister and not a Ukrainian servant. He stated, Bratislava will take a reciprocal, I don't know this word, by the way, approach to adequate, let's say, approach to Kiev in the row over the transit of the Russian natural gas that Kiev ended at the beginning of the new year. Fico warned, pledging to veto any future aid packages from the EU. The packages require anonymous backing from all the members of the bloc to be passed. And Fico is not going to be alone, I'm quite sure. Slovakia's veto will be supported by veto from Hungary. So Yes, Zelensky is finding himself more and more isolated, isn't it? He begged Trump's team to be invited in on inauguration. He did not receive one. He begs for attention of European leaders, and some of them, time to time, are visiting Kyiv regime. But you can clearly see that this volume of these trips, media operations, or photo ops are decreasing significantly. I mean, in 2022, every other day there was some delegation from one of the Western countries, and there's photo ops constantly. Nowadays, not so much, isn't it? And Zelensky has significant issues with its neighbors, by the way, not just Russia, but with Hungary, with Slovakia, and this is just the beginning. Zelensky has an issue with Poland too, and even with Romania, by the way. So things are not looking good for that bloody clown. And hopefully one day he will pay heavy price for all the crimes that he committed against Russian people, against all the residents of this former Soviet Republic under the name of Ukraine, against everybody. Hopefully one day he and his criminal inner circle will face the consequences for their criminal actions. And dear friends, before I continue, let me notice that this small media project of mine that operates from Russia is completely subscriber funded, and many thanks to all the members of our community who supported and continues to support my work to be able to stay in this field of news and political commentary. And if you are new to the channel, or if you were considering to support but did not yet, please consider once again, because without your assistance, without support of our community, this project simply would not exist. So yes, if you think I deserve to stay in this field of news and political commentary, please support this project with donations through PayPal or Boosty platforms, or by subscribing to my Patreon page or page on Boosty. And you can also support with cryptocurrencies if you are operating in that field. All the links, by the way, all the links on this video description box and in the pinned comment. Let's continue with some more news. And there are many members of our community already informed, I'm quite sure, that Hamas and the Israeli side achieved a ceasefire, and ceasefire is in place now. And Hamas already released 3 Israeli hostages, 3 females, and the Israeli side released 90 Palestinian females that were kept, that were in captivity in Israel. At least reports were that Israel should release 90. I don't know if all 90 people were released already or not, but this is first steps to release hostages. Hamas, overall Hamas will release more than 30 hostages that they have, and Israel promised to release more than 1,800 Palestinian hostages that are in captivity in Israel. So yes, peace is holding, truce is holding for now, and let's hope it will continue, and we will see true de-escalation in the region. But unfortunately, excuse me, unfortunately, I'm skeptical that Netanyahu and his inner circle are really serious about de-escalation. Probably they will use this first phase of this agreement, which will last for 6 weeks, for reorganizing themselves. Excuse me. Wow. So most likely Netanyahu's regime will use this time, first phase of the escalation, to reorganize itself, rearm, and after Israeli hostages are released, probably Netanyahu will use any any reason. They might even conduct false flag operation to start next level of hostilities. And I'm afraid, as I said many times before, true intent of Netanyahu and his inner circle is to force all Palestinians out of not just Gaza Strip, but also from the West Bank, and to integrate those territories into Israel. And I believe very same intent Netanyahu's regime has in regards to at least southern parts of Lebanon. But yet again, I hope I'm wrong, and I'm reading big picture mistakenly. Let's hope there will be no more escalations in this part of the world. Meanwhile, Vzglyad newspaper is reporting that according to Axios, Trump's team is very keen to remove current leadership of Venezuela to replace it. Well, none of us should be surprised. According to Axios, US not intends to use military force to remove Maduro from office, but they are determined to use whatever other means can be used to reestablish total control over their Venezuela. And I'm afraid there will be significant attempts on part of US to overthrow government in Venezuela. I'm afraid US will be active also in regards to Cuba, and probably US secret services will try to overthrow government in Cuba also, so that mafia in US and all the criminals, by the way, that flee Cuba, all the corrupt officials that flee Cuba after revolution and then establish different businesses, quite successful businesses, by the way, in some cases in US. Bacardi, for example, is belongs to migrants from Cuba, isn't it? And all these criminals, by the way, all these criminals obviously have big ties with the Republican Party, and all these criminals will definitely try to take back Cuba because they think Cuba belongs to them. They don't think Cuba belongs to people of Cuba. They think Cuba belongs to them because they were in charge of Cuba, by the way, before revolution. And if anybody thinks that people's rights were protected before revolution, I mean, come on, man, read some history. Cuba was controlled by mafia, literally by mafia and corrupt freaking regime. Right? That's what it was. But anyways, unfortunately, it is highly likely that Venezuela, Cuba, and many other countries in Latin America also will face significant pressure from US under Trump's administration, because neocons and the Western ruling class, they see Latin America as their backdoor or backyard, and they want to be in total control of everything there. And if any country demonstrates any level of independence or sovereignty, they are straight away becoming a target for the US. That's how it is. And that's how it was, historically speaking, by the way, at least for the last 100 years, isn't it? Definitely for after Second World War, that's for sure. And when it comes to regime changes that US is actively involved and the Western ruling class, well, President of Serbia is saying that, warns basically, that Serbia might face a Western-backed color revolution. So Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić has accused their opposition of their collaboration with the foreign intelligence agencies to destabilize the country, aimed ongoing student-led protests triggered by the deadly collapse of their canopy at their Novi Sad railway station in November This is all an attempt at the color revolution, which it said during a live interview on Happy TV. On Saturday, he claimed that foreign agents were encouraging students to block major transportation routes. The president alleged their activists are coordinated by the foreign instructors operating in the region. And dear friend, I mean, dear friends, I never understood why these governments in Serbia in this particular case, or in Georgia, by the way, that is also experiencing right now and for the last 3 months at least, since the October, by the way, yet another attempt by Western control, these NGOs and their so-called media and politicians, opposition politicians. Georgia is also experiencing this yet another attempt of regime change, right? And same is in Georgia. And I never understood why current leadership and security services are not taking real action. If you know that these groups are directed from outside of your country, that's a treason, by the way. That's literally what treason is, when citizens are acting under orders of the outside force, right? That's literally definition of treason. And why these elements are not arrested in mass and put in jail? Why you are playing with these games, and why you are risking with the livelihoods of millions of people? Because they're gonna endanger livelihoods of millions of people if they manage to conduct these regime changes, right? Georgia, by the way, barely survived as a state after previous regime change, which brings Saakashvili into power, who then provoked, reignite civil war inside the country, and then provoked a military conflict with Russia by authorizing fire on Russian peacekeepers that were stationed there under international mandate, which is act of war, obviously. You cannot target peacekeepers, right? So Georgia barely survived that color revolution and lost her South Ossetia and her Abkhazia that Russia recognized after 2008 conflict as independent states. And I'm afraid Georgia would not manage to survive if these Western-controlled assets will manage to conduct regime change now too. And I guess very same goes for Serbia. I never been in Serbia. I don't know opinion of the people, but you know, this color revolution never ended well for any country, really. This Western-controlled, organized, directed color revolution never ended well for any country, by the way, right? Why Serbia has, or why Georgia has secret services, man, or security services? Arrest those assets of their foreign powers. Because they are traitors, right? Simple as that. Everybody that acts under orders from outside is a traitor. It's that simple, right? Anyways, I mean, yeah, Serbia is facing some disturbances, and I'm afraid there if what the heck, man? Excuse me, dear friends. So yeah, Serbia is facing some challenges, and I'm afraid if some strong measures are not taken, then eventually these Western assets will overthrow governments, not just in Serbia, but in Georgia and in every other country where governments and security services are not taking all the measures that are necessary. And you know why they are not arresting those Western assets or foreign assets? Because they are afraid. They are afraid that they will be called dictators, and they will be smeared by the very same Western ruling class that tries to destroy their countries. That, you know, they will be smeared that they are dictators and this and that. Who cares, man? Why you care what Western ruling class or Western elites have to say about you? Me personally, I would not even shake hand. I would not stand next to these so-called elites in the West, by the way. They are degenerates, right? It's insulting to stand next to them, for God's sake. Why would I ever be interested in their opinion on myself, man? I don't see them as decent human beings, right? So what is wrong with leadership of Serbia or Georgia, for that matter? Why you care so much about what these criminals, so-called elites in the West, have to say, man? Act and protect your people. That should be your priority. Anyways, man. TikTok is back in US, so there will be less calls in emergency services. I was a bit surprised yesterday to see this news, by the way, that after TikTok was blocked, number of calls in 911 on 911 in US increased unimaginably, and people were calling and looking for help because they were too distressed. And I mean, what the hell, man? You're gonna be distressed because TikTok is not working? I mean, it might be, I mean, not convenient. I mean, but come on, man. I mean, I don't know. I don't get it, man. That people are calling for help, psychological assistance, and so on because some platform is shut down. Are you kidding me, man? What the hell? Life is not sugar, for God's sake, man. You know, be real. What the heck? But anyways, emergency service is gonna feel less stretched in US because TikTok is back, and according to reports that I see, there might be agreement in a place that TikTok, a US branch of the TikTok, will be sold to a company which will have at least 50% of US, 50% of which will be held by US company, and as a result, I guess TikTok will manage to maintain its presence on US market. And by the way, yesterday some people reported here in Russia, stated, some public figures, that this year TikTok may be unblocked in Russia. TikTok is blocked in Russia, by the way. And what, you know, who cares, right? Whoever wants to access TikTok still can do so with VPNs and stuff. You know, but this year TikTok may be unblocked in Russia also, and if that will happen, by the way, you know, I may open pager on a TikTok, and I might start doing some short videos about news and political commentary. I don't know, man. I'm just joking, but the idea is a interesting one, because I know there are news channels also on TikTok, isn't it? It's not just some funny videos, but as far as I understand, some serious stuff is also being published on TikTok. So, you know, so yes, congratulations to all the TikTok fans of US. They have their beloved platform back. And I will end this update, dear friends, on this interesting news that head of second biggest Russian bank, VTB Bank, Andrei Kostin, stated that Russia and quite effectively the rest of the world should forget about SWIFT. Basically, SWIFT needs to be killed as a platform, not literally killed, but ignored, basically, which will make it irrelevant. This is an approach that Kostin has, and I'm all for that. Because obviously SWIFT is immensely weaponized by Western ruling class and cannot be trusted, obviously. So VTB CEO Andrei Kostin said that the SWIFT system should be killed, not literally, but and stopped working with it. According to RIA Novosti, Kostin explained his position by saying that SWIFT is a direct leak of information to Russia's enemies. He also stressed that the decision to abandon the use of this system is simple and requires only administrative actions and some technological solutions. As the newspaper Vzglyad wrote, the central banks of the BRICS countries are developing a financial information exchange system that will become analog of the SWIFT, and hopefully this system becomes operational as soon as possible, hopefully this year, because world definitely needs some alternatives to the SWIFT, because you cannot use this platform. I mean, SWIFT is definitely a weapon in hands of Western ruling class, and why should any country provide its internal information about banking operations to hostile entities like Western ruling classes, right, that are in charge of SWIFT? So Kostin definitely has a point, and well, he also spoke about cooperation between, as an example of alternative ways. He also mentioned that there is a cooperation in place between Russian central bank and Iranian central bank and banking systems of the Russia and Iran, and their payment systems of two countries, Russian Mir and the Iranian payment system that I cannot remember name of. They are integrated now, and therefore Russian citizens while visiting Iran will have no issue using their cards, Mir cards, and the citizens of Iran while visiting Russia for business or for tourism or for whatever reason, they will have no issue to use their Iranian bank cards, which is great, by the way, isn't it? And I guess this is the way to go. Bilateral agreements between the countries about exchange of this banking transaction informations. That's the way to go. And I guess Moscow is working exactly on this direction. Anyways, SWIFT definitely has to be neutralized one way or another, but give it another 5-10 years, and I guess SWIFT will only be relevant in the Western world, and the rest of the world will have alternative payment system that would not be controlled by the Western ruling class. And this is it for now, dear friends. Hopefully you will find this update informative, interesting, useful, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything, any topic. This is the only way we can try to influence algorithm and reach wider audience. And for the same reason, if you can, please share information about my channel with your friends in real life or on internet, or my videos. Yes, finally, if you, as I already said, if you like my work and want to support, you can do it. All the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care.